Okay, I'm here to go through a few examples of how to work your graphing calculator. This right here is your graphing calculator. Uh, Press the on button and let's see if we can get started with this. I have a few problems here that I want to work out. Some things that I want to point out. This is like your main screen that you do most of your math in. So let's say if I want to do negative 34 plus 45. The negative sign is right here below the 3, and that is completely different than the subtraction sign, which is next to the 6. So you see I put negative 34, and then I'm going to put plus 45 and press the enter button, and it's going to give me my answer. Now, if I did negative 48, see I use the negative sign that's below the 3, and I subtract 42. You notice how on the screen the subtraction sign and the negative sign are two different things. Okay? The subtraction sign is an operation. The negative sign is just a sign. It's telling you the sign of the number. So you notice how they show up different on the screen. So when you press enter, that's going to give you the answer of negative 90. So be sure that you're using the right symbol when you're putting things into your calculator. So let's put some fractions in here. So when you are putting fractions in your calculator, I would overuse your parentheses. Sometimes you don't need to use parentheses. Sometimes you do. As a rule of thumb for my classes, I typically tell them, when in doubt, just use them, okay? Whenever I put a fraction in my graphing calculator, I just put it in parentheses, regardless of the situation, just so there's no question there. That's negative 5 over 7. So notice how I use the parentheses. I did 5 divided by 7. That's how I get the fraction symbol there, because a fraction is division, right? So I have negative 5 over 7, and then I'm going to put a plus sign. And then I have another fraction that I want to put in there. I'm going to put that in parentheses as well. So divided by 3. And notice how I have both of my both of my fractions in parentheses. And then I'm going to press the enter button. And it gives me my answer in decimal form. This is normal. Your calculator automatically puts it in decimal form, but you don't want to put this crazy answer into your work, right? You want to put it in fraction form. So to do that, you go right below the alpha button. You see the green button that says alpha. If you click on math, which is right below the alpha button, math, the very first option says frac. That means fraction. So press enter on frac. And then in the calculator, it's basically saying, oh, you want to put your answer in fraction notation? And you press enter to say yes. And it will put your answer in fraction notation, just like magic. Negative 8 over 21. So if you're one of those people that have a hard time with fractions, a graphing calculator can be a lifesaver, because you can put these crazy fractions into your calculator and it will spit out the answer for you. You have 13 over 10. I put it in parentheses, as I said before, and it says minus negative 1 over 5. So that first sign is a subtraction sign. That's an operation. So I press the subtraction sign that's right next to the 6. Then I'm going to do parentheses, and I'm going to use the negative sign now. 1 divided by 5. Close parenthesis. And so when I press enter, it's going to give me my answer in decimal form. If I want it in fraction form, I go to math. I press enter on frac, which means fraction. So it says, oh, you want to put your answer in fraction form? You press enter to say yes, and the answer is 3 over 2. That's how you do some of the basic things with your graphing calculator. But some of these basic things are a lifesaver for students that feel kind of intimidated with fractions and stuff like that. So another thing I want to show you right quick is how to graph. So I'm going to move this screen up a little bit. Okay, let's say we have something like this, and I want to basically plug in a number to see if it gives you a true statement or not. So to plot this into your graphing calculator, you can go to these top buttons up here. This is where you graph things. This is where you enter equations. If you go to y equals, you are able to put the left-hand side of this inequality into your calculator. And you would do that by putting x squared. The variable will be right next to your alpha. You see where it says x, t, theta, n. I click on that and it puts an x there. Don't use the variables at the bottom. Don't use the letters that are down here in green. Don't use those. You use the variable that's right next to your alpha. So I have x squared minus, not negative, minus x minus 12. I put this in my y equals, right? Then I can go to my table. My table is right above graph right here. But in order for me to get to table, I have to press the second button to get to your table. And you have a table that looks like this. So what needs to happen is I want to set the calculator up so I can enter whatever number I want to enter into the calculator. Right now it's set up to where they pick what numbers they want to use. They're just picking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say I wanted to enter the number 1/2. Let's say if I wanted to put this number in. X equals 1/2. Okay, let's say if I wanted to put x equals 1/2. Does that give me a true statement or not? And I don't see 1/2 on here. All they have is 1, 2, 3. You know, they just have whole numbers. So what you do to change it so you can put whatever number you want to into the calculator, you're going to go to table set, which is right above window. So press second window and you get to your table setup, right? You want to make your independent, you want to change that to ask. So you see how it's highlighted auto? The reason why your independent is highlighted auto is because your calculator is automatically going to make your x values. Independent is your x values. Dependent is your y values. So right now my calculator is set up to where all of my x values are automatically picked for me. But if I change this to ask, I'm going to press enter and make sure the word ask is highlighted. Now the calculator is going to ask you, what x value do you want to enter? So change that and then go back to your table and look at your table. Got to press second table. Press graph. I got to press the second button and graph. And see, look at my table. My table is blank. My table is blank because the calculator is asking, what value of x do you want to use? So I'm going to put 1/2, 1 divided by 2. And then it will tell me what y value is equal to if I was to plug x equals 1/2 in for all of my x values in this inequality. So what the calculator does is it puts 1/2 in for all the x values and tell you what that's equal to. And then you have to figure out, does that give you a true statement? So they're saying if you plug in, what is that? Negative 12.25. So they're saying if you plug in x here, 1/2 here, 1/2 here, you're going to get negative 12.25. Is that less than or equal to 0? That is actually a true statement. Okay. Let's say if I wanted to put in there negative 10. Let's say if I want to put x equals negative 10. I could go to my calculator. It's already in the calculator. And I could just put, okay, let me put negative, not subtraction. I put negative 10 and it tells me 98. So whenever if I plug in negative 10 for all of my x values, okay, they say that that's equal to 98. Is 98 less than or equal to 0? That's not true. So that wouldn't be a true statement. So it's kind of like you can test any number you want to. Okay. So that's a cool way that you can kind of put numbers in there. You're going to have to do this at some point in college algebra. So you want to know how to use that in your calculator. I think that is about it that I just wanted to show the basics. You have your square. You have your square root button. If you go back to here, your square root button is right above your square. So in order to get to it, you have to press the second. Okay, anything that's in blue, you got to press second before you press it. So I got square root, and you can put whatever number you want to in there. If I want to put, not 1, how about if I put 81? Oops. Let's put 81. That's going to give you 9. Okay, so your square root is there. What's another common one? Square is another common one. Your parentheses are here. You want to use your parentheses when necessary. And I think that is it for like the basic, okay, I need to learn just some basic rules about how to use my calculator. If I wanted to graph this, I kind of showed you earlier. I put this in the calculator, but if I wanted to see what it looked like on a graph, just press the graph button and then you can see it looks like a parabola. If you want to change it so it zooms in, press the zoom button. And the two windows that you use a lot is Z decimal and Z standard, number 4 and number 6. Z decimal makes your window go from negative 5 to 5 on the x-axis and negative 5 to 5 on the y-axis. So if you go to 4, let me scroll down to 4 and press enter on 4. You see it zoom in. So you see my window is from negative 5 to 5 and then negative 5 to 5 on the y. So if I go back to zoom and I go to Z standard makes your window go from negative 10 to 10 on the X and Y. So if I click on that, you see it zoom back out. So those are two useful things. I will probably make a more detailed video later about some other things that you can do with the calculator, but this is just a thing to get started. Okay, and know with your fractions also, I just thought about this. No, you can actually multiply your fractions as well. Again, you put your fractions in parentheses. Let's say if I wanted to do negative 2 over 5 times, I don't know, 3 divided by 7. I put that in parentheses as well. So I have negative 2 over 5 times 3 over 7. I press enter. It's going to give me this crazy decimal. You press the math button. You press enter on fraction, and it's going to change it to a fraction. So you can do all kinds of things with fractions. Just make sure you put them in parentheses. Make sure you know the difference between your subtraction and negative. And I think I'm done. I'll see you next time.